All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll start our class. All right. All right. So before we kick off week 14, I just want to see how's everybody kind of feeling about Express. Let's do our fist of five. Let me quickly go over them again if you don't remember. 0, no idea what Express is. No idea what Node.js is. 1, I need help. 2, I need more practice and examples. 3, 4, and 5 are okay, you're kind of getting it. 5 is probably like me. Okay? All right, let's see. Threes. Okay. 2, 3, and 4. 2, whole 2. Okay, 3. Okay. You have what? 2.5? 2 3/4. Okay. So if you are, well, 3 and above are, I'm still okay. That's kind of like the pace of the class. Between 2 and 3, that's also, I would prefer that I would like that everybody is at least 3 and above. 2, again, if you are in a 2, again, I would recommend please go back, watch the videos, okay? Then go back and do the exercises. I've uploaded all solutions, every exercise, like step by step how we created the Express app, okay? Starting from, I think there are like 12 files for the Game of Thrones, and I have started, if you start from the first one, starts from just creating a server, then all the way through the whole app, okay? Again, if that doesn't make sense, then please slack out your questions. You don't want to slack out your questions, you can DM me, direct message me on Slack. You don't want to direct message me on Slack, you can. And if people who have messaged me, I try my best to answer as soon as possible. Not even at a convenient time, like as soon as possible, I answer them. You don't want to message me, TAs are there. You don't want to message TAs, maybe reach out to the peers. There are quite a few people, especially from this class. I mean, I haven't had a response before. There are quite a few people already has approached me and they want to become TAs for the next cohort. So how the process works, I have to look at how you guys stand, whoever is interested in, and then I have to recommend that person. So already I have few people who have approached and they are really interested in becoming TAs. So for those people, this is a good practice. Maybe reach out and see if somebody needs help, because that's what the TAs do, right? Even in the interview process, the expectation is, aside from your grade, of course, the grades are important because you're going to tell somebody how to do a homework. You should be able to know how to do it, right? You are approachable and you can actually explain something to somebody. Okay, not at a very high, at a deep level, but you have some good understanding. Okay, so for those who are interested, it's a good practice. For people who are still confused, reach out to your peers and see if they can explain it to you. Tutors are there, but again, that's kind of like a hit and miss. But I shared an Excel file initial in the beginning of the class, and I think it's pinned onto one of the channels. Those are some of my previous cohorts who are willing to spend some time. I know some people reached out. I'm not sure what the response was, but there's a whole. I think I keep adding few more people. I think right now it's almost up to 15. I'm not sure, but I get responses back, and people are like, "Hey, now I'm available. I want to help somebody." So you can reach out to them and see if you can understand what's going on. Okay, but again, this is what we started last week is extremely important because this is how the real world applications are made. Okay, this is, I know we studied everything in isolation, now it's coming together, and this is how actual the apps are made. Okay, so it's extremely important that we understand Express. We understand how to create web servers in Express and Node.js. Okay, um, so this week, if you see the pattern, we did Express. We had some data, and we were able to display on our APIs and on our web pages. Okay, the missing link was the database part. Okay, we didn't have the database connected. So this week we are going to look into how to connect our database, and then how do we display that information on our HTML pages that come from our database. Okay, it's not as straightforward, and we'll see what we will do in the beginning of the classes. We are going to do the database part first, then we are going to see how do we display that information on our HTML pages. Okay, um, in the other 2 days, we are going to build on top of that. We are going to make more what do I say, more sophisticated applications, which will have a complete set, which will be front end, your Node.js Express server, and then your database as well. Okay. One of the other things I've seen is you guys spend too much time on your homework. I'll be honest, you guys do spend too much time on your homework. Again, as I said, you have to balance it out. Okay. Um, which is more important? Activities are slightly more important. And again, why? If you see the pattern, the activities do have some sort of solutions for your homework, right? Again, if you last week you were like, okay, I'm working on my homework, I'm going to come back to this part next week, we are already moving on. Okay, it's very hard to catch up, especially if you're working and especially if you have other commitments. It's very difficult to come back and kind of put time into it. Okay, so time management extremely important. Try to balance your time, make sure you do activities as well. Class hours, um, there's only literally one person who's there for class hours after class. Again, class hours are there for a reason. Again, I understand you guys are tired, not up to it, but you still, we have what, like three more months remaining, right? We're almost there. This week, next week, we'll be done, and the project 2 starts. Again, after project 2, I know it's important topics like MongoDB and React, but understand that your foundation is done. By project 2, you guys are ready to start interviewing and all that stuff. Okay, we'll talk about it more later on, but just to give you guys a heads up. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Before we move on to our databases, let's just do a quick warm-up 15-minute activity. This is activity number 1 from your GitLab. It doesn't deal anything with database or anything of that sort. Wow, my computer, is it? We did open. No. So it doesn't really deal with database or anything. It just you just have to create one route. All right, let's see what it says. Okay, so you're going to create one get route, right, using Express. You're going to create an Express server. What does that one route do? Again, it's just one get route. Okay, the get route, it is, you're going to pass an operation, add, multiply, subtract, divide. Okay, and then two numbers. Based on the operation, you're going to perform that operation on the two numbers. Okay, and how does your route look like? If you look at the last one, this is an example route. So your localhost 3000, you can use any port. Over here it says 3000. And then the first parameter is your operation. The second two parameters are your numbers. Okay? So the most challenging part of this exercise is actually coming up with this route. Okay, how do you make this route? What's going to be the URL string for this route? Okay, to me, that's probably the most challenging part. The rest is we have done calculators, so it should be familiar. And then your unsolved kind of helps you through with the calculation part. Um, if you look at your unsolved, so you already have your express added. If you see you have a package JSON, so you don't have to install by name. You can just do npmi and it will install express. I think it already has express over here. Yeah. Okay. And then go through the code, see what's going on, and then fill out the comments. Okay. Again, as I said, I think this is probably coming up with this URL. How do you make it more dynamic that whatever you pass in is read? That's probably the more challenging part versus actually solving it. Okay, we'll take 15 minutes and then we will jump into the database part. Just So are you guys able to figure out the URL? Okay. So if you see this add and two numbers, these are variable, right? Variable as in the sense that this is going to change. It's going to be add, it could be subtract, it could be divide, it could be multiply. Okay, and these two numbers are going to change as well. All right, so anything that is changing, that is variable, how do we create that URL? Yes. Slash colon. All right, remember the colon? Colon is the one that you are saying this is going to be a parameter that is going to change. Okay, so since there are, how many are there? 1, 2, and 3. So we need to create 3 variables in your URL with colons, right? So you'll say, let's say the first one is going to be, let's come over here. The first one is could be add, multiply, divide, and subtract, right? So let's call it colon operation, right? And then our URL still goes on for 2 more. The other 2 are going to be numbers. So you can say colon first num, and then colon slash second num. Right, so what happens now? In your browser, when you run localhost 3000 or actually 8080, since that's the port number in this example, you are going to pass in first, second, and third, 3 values. All right, and this is how you pass in values that are going to change. Okay, so the first one is going to be our operation. So we can create a variable and save that in that operation. Parse out variables from the request. So it could be let operation is equal to, and how do we pull these things out? It's going to be in our request, right? Not in the response. So request dot params, and then what are we calling it? Operation. That's what we called it. So it has to exactly match this, and this is how we will get our operation. Okay. For our first number, let's create a variable first number. Same thing, request dot params, and then it's going to be called first num because that's what the name I have over here. Okay, now what data type are these going to come in? Strings, right? But we are making a calculator, so I need these to be integers. So let's go ahead and convert them into integers. So just use our parse int. Okay, so these will be converted into integers. Let's do the second number, second num, parse int, and then rect dot params dot second num. Okay. All right. So this was the other part. I'll solve it quickly, but this was the more important part, that you recognize how to create a URL based on this thing. Okay. All right. Any questions before I proceed? I'll quickly at least solve the first one, the add one. The rest of them are similar to what we have done, but this is more important. Does everybody understand the URL, how we came to this conclusion? Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right. So let's just do the first one. Add your logic for add. And then we are saving everything in our result. So we'll just use our result variable and then add the 2 numbers. Okay, and that should work for the add. Let's see. Yeah, that should work. So I already have my server running using NodeMon. So all I have to do is now go to my local host, but this time 8080. Well, this is not going to work because I don't have a route. And the route that I have is slash operation. So let's say add, and then let's give it 2 numbers. Okay, and the result should display as 12. Okay, change this, 13, and then the same numbers. Okay, so the next steps are very similar. Subtract, those are just operations. But this is the URL. Again, the 3 variables, the URL is changing by operation and then 2 numbers. Okay, and that's what your route is. Now you can pass in anything over here. Yes, it's going to break, but that's how we have our URL set up. Okay, any questions? Yes. It should already be there. If you look at the last line, that's what I checked. It says rest.send, and so this should actually get displayed on the page. Yeah, I didn't do anything extra. So it is sending as a string and it displays on the screen. Add function is super complicated. You're like adding two numbers. Is there? Oh, so did check your browser? If is there any error in your inspect? Usually that's what the error is. Where the error is, and you are calling your URL with your passing these two parameters. Actually three parameters. Is that how you? Yeah, and in your inspect, any errors? No errors in your console. Anybody else have a similar error or not able to display? Yeah, yeah. Go ahead then. Meanwhile, please ask the question. Yes. Yes. Okay. If you are using the yes, you can. If you do this, if you say case plus, oops, plus. So, right. What does this say? They say if it is add or plus, execute this statement. Okay. Okay. What's the other? Um, so where would I put that code? Over here. So if operation is equal to subtract or add.
So
Okay.
what's weird though, if I take out that or subtract, it stops working. So it works as is.
Okay.
That does not work.
If operation is equal to this, so if you pass in negative, it's not working.
But it works if it has the subtract or.
It should, yeah, it should work. Remove that, and what happens? Like, what do you mean it doesn't work?
Here's the error.
What's
So
the
this is with the
okay? And without it,
subtract or.
let's see the error. What's the error?
Or actually, it's not there. It adds it for some reason.
I'll go back in your ad. You see that there's a condition I saw something. Let me make sure.
So this one should be if it's add or plus. Right?
Okay, if operation is equal to negative, and what's show me your URL. The URL that you are negative 510. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back. Um, show me your switch statement. Where is subtract? Uh, okay, scroll above a little bit. Okay, if operation is equal to add or subtract this thing. If operation is equal to negative, do a console log operation and see what's coming back. I'm kind of curious. Do a console log. Just after that.
It's just strange that it works when you have the or.
Yeah. Let's see what looks coming back. No, this console log is on the server. So just refresh that page.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's doing weird stuff. What it is doing is it's does this or this or something, and it comes like this. It's not able to separate.
can't determine.
Yeah, it's not. It's not able to do that. It's not able to determine if those are part of the same thing. What we usually do is you will say if op is equal to something, and then you will do the same thing is equal to add. What you are trying to do is this is how it's
So
usually
you separate it.
two sep yeah, yeah. Then you don't need these parentheses. The way you are doing it, I think it's getting confused. That's one. All right, Goose, did you get it working? What was the issue? You were using HTTPS. All right. All right. We will forget that that ever happened, and we're going to move on. Okay. So now we will jump back to our today's lesson. We will do the database part. We're going to create a table, put some data in, okay, and then we are going to get the data from our Express server. All right. So again, same thing. I'm going to be doing this section. Oh, I didn't create a folder. And then you guys can either follow along or just take notes, because there's a whole exercise that you guys are going to do the same thing. Okay. So it's better to just make sure you understand before we start doing the exercise. My all right. Let me open this, and then we will go ahead and create a database. Okay, so before I come to my JavaScript, let's go back and create a database. Let me open my MySQL. All right, MySQL Workbench, and then we'll kind of use a previous example that I did for the schools one. So we'll create a school database with just two columns, ID and name, and then insert some data, and then retrieve that data back to our Express app. Okay, so create. Is it typing? Create database schools underscore dd. All right, that should be created. Let's double click this so that this is selected. Next, I will create a table. So create table schools. Okay. Let's create our columns. The first column, school underscore ID. Okay. Integer, auto increment, and then not null. Oh, this is going to become my primary key. Second column, name. Okay. Varchar. Let's do it 100. Okay. Not null as well. And then the last one would be my primary key, and that is going to be my school. Come on. Nope. School ID. Okay. Create table, school name, varchar. Let's run this and see. Successful. All right. Let's run our select query to see if it shows up. Select star from schools, and there's my table with no rows. Okay, so this looks like my table has been created successfully. My columns are there. Let's go ahead and insert some rows in our table. Okay. Insert into table name. Okay, column name. We don't need the ID auto generated, so we just need the column. Values. Let's go ahead and insert some school name. Okay. Right, so that's first. Insert into school's name, and that's my name. Insert successful. That's good. So let's go ahead and insert. Oops. Let's go back and make sure. And I have with this ID. Okay, that looks good. So I'm just going to copy paste and insert two more. Institute. Okay, successful, and then two times. Okay, successful. Let's go back, and I have 3 rows in my database. All right, so that's my database part that's done. Now what we are going to do, we are going to pull this data from our Express app. Okay, what is different when you go to your route on your browser, it should give me back this data. All right, so let's get back to our Express app. Create a folder, let's call it schools. Okay, I'm going to create my server.js. All right, need to install Express, so I need to remember that. So let's create our Express, import our Express library, since we are going to be using MySQL as well, so I need MySQL npm package as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and import both of them. All right, need to call the Express function. All right, add a port number. Let's get in the habit of using this because you guys are going to be deploying these apps eventually on Heroku, so just to avoid so that you guys don't miss this part out. Okay, again, this wouldn't run, it will run on 3000. This is localhost. This is required if you're deploying to any cloud providers such as Heroku. Okay, let's go ahead and start our server first before we make our SQL connection so that we are sure that this is working. So app.listen. Okay, 2 parameters. The first would be a port number. The second is your callback function. And then say console log. Server. Say app. Server listening on http / localhost for now. Okay, and then use our template literal syntax. Okay, this is successful. I should see this. Let's see, localhost, port number, app.listen, and that should be good, right? So let's go ahead and I'm using node 1, so I want to run on a separate server. Let's go back. 6. There's my server.js. So npm I express, and then let's install MySQL as well. npm I MySQL. All good. Let's run this, and this should at least start. Okay, that's good. All right. Now, if I go to this page, is it going to show anything? No. It's going to give you an error saying unable to get request. Why? Because I haven't created any route that should come up. Okay. So before we create that route, let's go ahead and create our MySQL connection. Okay, because I need to connect to my database, get all those rows, and then show in my get route. All right. Going back, let's create our connection configuration. So MySQL dot create connection. Okay, it takes in an object, 3-4 properties. Let's start with host. It is running on localhost. Port number. This is the port number for MySQL. Okay, this is the second confusing part. Which port number am I giving? Your Express app is running on port 3000, but your MySQL on localhost is running on port number 3306. Okay, these are two different ports. All right, make sure they both are different. Okay. User, I'm still using my root user. Password, still complicated one. Password. Oops, I missed commas. Yeah. All right, and then my database. And I called it schools underscore db. So schools underscore db. Okay. Now I have my database connection. My port is listening. Is this complete for MySQL, or do I need to do something else? I need to connect to my MySQL. Excellent. So I just create a configuration. Similar to your Express server listening, you need to connect to your MySQL. So let's go ahead and create that connection dot connect. Oops. Okay. What does connect take? Just a callback function with an error. Oops. Okay. And then we'll say if error, you don't want to proceed further. So let's just throw that error, and then my execution stops over here. Otherwise, let's go ahead and tell our server console log saying connected to database with ID. Use our template literal syntax, and then just put in connection dot with ID. All right, so let's go back and see what happened over here. All right, you see my server started listening on port number 3000, and my database is also connected with this ID. Okay, so I have two things going on over here. All right, I have my Express server running, and I also have my connection to my SQL database. All right, both are being done on two different ports. My Express is running on this port, and my database is running on this port. But both of them are on localhost. Okay. All right. Any questions? This is important. My Express is also running on localhost, but on this port number. My SQL is also connected on localhost, but with a different port number. Okay. And if this is good, you should be able to be successfully listening also and connected also. Okay. Let me go ahead and minimize this and go back to our routes. All right, any questions before we move on and make our SQL query? Good? Everybody understands? All right, so yes, yes. They have to. Again, why? You can only have one connection on one port. If you do this on port 3000 and then you have start another server on the same port, you will get an error. And a lot of you have already faced that error. And the error is because you have your terminal, you don't close their terminal. What happens? It says there is already some other app that is connected on port number this. I cannot start listening on the same port number. Yes. Okay. Yes, it doesn't matter what they are. Yes, they should be different. Okay. Now, once you get to Heroku, we have already seen this. Heroku assigns a port number on its own, right? Eventually, for your database also, Heroku has MySQL database and they have their own port number. Okay, so they are taking care of making sure that both are running on a different port. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and create our get route. So these are my connections done. App.get express function, 2 parameters. First one is going to be a route, and we are creating a root route. Okay, so slash and then our callback function with request and response. Okay, so now if somebody comes to my web page, I want them to, let's go back over here. Let's test this out. Say response.send. It's working. Okay, just to test this out. So my app is running on port 3000 and it shows up over here. Okay, this assures me that my server is running. I'm able to send back something from my root route. Okay, so now what do I have to do? I want to send, when somebody comes to this route, I want to connect to my database. All right, that's already there. And then I need to read the rows, all the rows from my database and send that back as a response. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to go back to our connection for our database connection and put in the SQL query that we want to execute. Const, let's say SQL query. Okay, and my SQL query is, use the template literal syntax and then say select star from schools. Okay. And then call our query function. Okay, query function takes, the first one would be my query, which is going to be SQL query. All right. Second is parameters, but I don't have any parameters. I'm just running a simple query. The third is your callback function. Callback function has a error and results. Okay, results will contain everything coming from my database. All right. Let's do this. If there is any error, let's just throw that error for now so that we can see what happened. All right, now all my data is in my results. Let's do this. Let's do response.json. Okay, and then send our results back. Okay, let's take this out. Okay, so for now I'm just testing and seeing if my results actually come back. Let's go back to my terminal. Looks good. Come back here, refresh. And there they are. See that? Let's go back to our code. Okay, so I created a route, the root route. Okay, what does it do? It goes to my database, runs the query, gets all the rows. Once it has all the rows, it responds as JSON. Okay, it sends all the results back, and here are my results. All right, any questions before we proceed? Everybody understand how this is working? I created a get route. This is my express route. Within this, I'm making a query to my database, connecting to my database, getting all the results. For now, I'm sending back as JSON. Got it? Okay. Now, what is this route? Is it a HT or just this one? Is this an HTML route or an API route? HTML, right? It's not an API. Why? Because I'm not saying slash API slash something. Now, if it is an API route, by standards, we should be sending a JSON back. If it is an HTML route, I should be sending HTML back. Right now, what am I doing? I have a HTML route, but I'm sending JSON back, which is not good, right? So we need to go back and change this and send in HTML back. Okay. Now, what do we have to do? I have to send in HTML back with all these things inside it. Okay. For example, I want to create a web page. When somebody comes to my page, my home page, I want to show all the schools. Let's say I want to show the schools in a list form. Okay, like an unordered list. Right. So I want to create a UL and then have some li tags. Okay, and these will have my school names and IDs. Okay, this is what I want to do, right? So if I want to create a web page and I want to show these results inside it, well, let's start with something easy, just the name of the school. Okay, so I have a list and I want to show name of the schools in my list when somebody comes to my this page, comes to my home page. Okay, how would I do that? What are some possible options that I send back in HTML? Okay, I'm not looking for code, I'm just concept wise. What do I have to do? Now remember, HTML file. Yes, Kelly, you had something? That's what I think. Okay, if I'm sending an HTML file back, how would I go about it? All right, so I understand what you guys are saying. You're saying, oh, create an HTML file here, index, and then use a path.join, and then say response.send file. Okay, but how do I pass it? My file should have the data that is coming over here. How would I do that? Magic. Dot send. Dot send. That's first. Let me complete the file. You guys see the how do I do it? I have a file. I have a nice file which has all these LIs. But how do I pass these results to my index.html? That's the answer, but for now we won't go over there. So the answer is we cannot do a file over here yet. Okay. Again, the reason is if I have a file, that's okay. I can do a send file, but my send file is kind of hard coded. My index file is there. How do I pass in this data to my index file? Okay. Right now it's not possible. Kelly, you said send. Okay. What do I do with the send?
Well, you have to hard code the tags and everything.
Ah.
And then do a for loop to put your information in.
Okay. Yeah.
That.
Yeah. So what he's saying is, for now, what do we have to? We have to build our HTML over here, and instead of sending a JSON, we just send a string with HTML. Okay, and this is a string. So for example, what I mean is, let's say let HTML is equal to a string. We're going to build our HTML over here. Okay, create a whole HTML page with ULs and LIs with all the data, and then send that back as a string. Remember the send function? It's able to, your browser is able to process anything if it is in HTML, and it's able to show that. Yes. Right now, well, what's the different way? Right now, there's no different way. There's a different way, and we'll cover it, right? But for now, what we have learned, this is probably the only way you can do it. All right, so we'll do it the hard way first, so that you guys understand the pain that I'm going to go through right now, and then we will look at the other way. Well, when we get to that, I will. You guys probably won't even like that way as well. Okay. So first of all, let's go ahead and create our HTML, and let's solve this for now. So I need my HTML tags, right? Please let me know if my HTML is wrong. Body, I need a body tag. All right. Let's complete this. Okay. And then I need a UL. So I'm going to create a UL, and then I need a slash unordered list. It's gonna look something. I have an unordered list, my body tag, HTML. So far so good. Okay, this is my HTML. It looks like correct. All right. Now within my UL tags, I want li with information, and my information is an array, and it has all the information. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that li list. So what do I have to do? I have to create a bunch of li's that I want to put it in between these things. For example, eventually I want to do li, right? I think I'll have to break this HTML, or we'll come back to it. Something like this, and then it should have some information. Where is this information? This is coming from results. So let's go ahead and create these li tags with a loop, and then try to see how do we put these tags in between over here. Okay, so it'll be some string parsing. So let's go ahead and create those tags for what's my array? It's called results, right? Results with these three objects with these names. Okay. All right. Let's remove this. So let's go ahead and have our HTML variable. All right. This is a string, and use our string template retros and just create those li's this time. I'm going to have an li. All right, and then I'm going to, let's add a p tag within it, and then say school ID. Okay, and what is my school ID? It's going to be results I dot school school ID. Let's make sure this is correct. School ID. Okay, and my p tag here, it's /p. Okay, and create another p tag with my school name, and that is going to be results I dot this name. Okay, this name, and then end my p tag. Okay, and tag for li. Okay, so for now, what am I doing? I'm creating a repeatable li tags. Again, why? Because I'm getting 3 or more results back, and I want to show on my web page all of them should be listed, all right, using the unordered list. All right, how do I create a repeatable one? Run through the loop, get each ID and name, put it in an li tag inside a p tag, and then create a bunch of li's. Okay, now these li tags are going to be embedded over here, so let's go ahead and remove all of this, the end tags. First of all, I don't need this, so let's go ahead and remove these, and these have to come after my li tags are there, so I'm going to add them later on. So this is how insert the for loop variable. Yeah, you have to do it after. And then let's go ahead and add our stuff after this. So after my for loop is done, I want to add my end tags over here. Okay, my UL ends over here. Oops, ends over here. Then my body tag, and then my HTML tag. Okay, I'm trying to make it more visual so that you guys can see it. So HTML, okay, HTML, my body tags, my starting of UL. All right, within the UL, this loop is going to run. It's going to create 3 records, 3 lists, li elements. Once that is done, it's going to, in the end, it's going to add the UL tag and end tags to it. And finally, my HTML will be complete. Okay, remember I'm using the plus equal to because you want to keep adding to those things. Let's see, does this look okay? Okay, so this is how you would create an HTML. Let's see if I do a response.send. Now if I go to my page and refresh, I should get a HTML page if I did everything correct. Oh, I did. Oh, first time. I just get I just say because I'm using strings over here, right? You could have a typo and it kind of destroys the whole HTML. But you see it now. This is my route. This is my home page, right? I want to send an HTML back. I don't want JSON looking over here, right? Why? Because it's not a HTML. It's not an API route. And for now, how do we do this? We have to get all the rows from our database, and then we loop through them. We create an HTML page, all right, and then send the HTML back as a string. Okay, so HTML comes back over here. The string, your browser recognizes HTML and renders the HTML page. Okay, now imagine if you had to add Bootstrap and Jumbotron over here. That would be fun, right? Right? Again, this is the reason we caution, we don't have a good way to add our results or some variables. Why? These are basically variables, right? And what am I doing? I'm using my uh, template literal syntax and I'm kind of putting these things inside my string, right? Remember this. This is the concept, and once we'll do this exercise and you guys kind of go through the same pain for a while. When we get to it, it's the similar concept. Okay, just like template literals, you have a string, and you are putting or you're creating a placeholder which gets replaced with the actual data, right? We're going to look at a npm package that does the same thing, but this time with HTML. Okay. All right, but before we get to that part, any questions on this? Does everybody understand why this is required, why this is necessary? Because at this point, we don't have a better way to put in our data. But since this is our HTML route, what do we have to do? We have to send an HTML back with my data, which is coming from my database. Okay. Now, if there was a route slash ID, okay, again, the same HTML route, you would put an ID over here and then create your SQL statement with an ID and then send it back. For example, what I mean is, let's suppose you just want to see data for one school. You send an ID back, you'll have your request, your response, okay? And then you're going to create your query. So const SQL query. This time the query is going to be select star from schools. schools, right? Or school. Schools. Okay. Where, and then a placeholder, right? And then you would say connection dot query, right? This time the first parameter is your SQL query. Okay. The second we have a placeholder, so we need to pass something, and this placeholder is taking place of an object, right? I'm saying where id is equal to some id, right? Why do we need an object and not an array over here? Because I'm saying this is going to be replaced with where school underscore id is equal to the id that I'm passing in. Okay, if you did this, then you need to pass an array because the column name is already there. But what I'm doing is I don't want this column name to be here. I'm just putting question mark, and I'm going to put this over here. So I'm going to say school underscore id. Now where do I get the value for this id? From where? What? From the request, right? This id is coming from the request URL. So how do I get this id? I'm going to say request dot params dot id. Okay. Let's go back. So this is going to be actually an integer. So this will come back as a string. So let's convert this into a integer. Const. Let's say school ID. Okay. Request dot params dot ID. Parse int. Okay, and then you can pass this in over here. School ID. Okay, last parameter, callback function, error and results. Let's console log the. Let's send the JSON back first. That the same way that we did in the previous example, so that we can see if this is working or not. Results. Okay, now I have a second route. This route is if somebody passes an ID, it makes a connection. Let's see my error. If error, then throw error. Okay, this time let's send a response back for just one. Okay, if this everything is good, it should give me a JSON back with one response. So if I go back here and I say, let's make sure this is still working. Oh, all right. So my app crashed. What am I missing? What did I forget? Oh, let's see if it starts back up correctly. Okay, thank you. Let's refresh this. This is still working. Now if I pass in an ID of 1, I should get a JSON back. Okay, there it is. Okay, so if I pass in an ID of 2, I should get a JSON back. And then for 3, gives me this. Okay, again, remember this is returning an array. Within an array, it only has one object. So based on that, you would have to create your SQL query. Again, it's the same thing. This is not an API, this is an HTML route, so you need to have your HTML. So let's copy this and then no, what did I do? Alright, so let's get back over here. This time, let's make this HTML. So it still results is going to be an array, but I don't need to do this whole for loop. Why? Because it should return only one object, right? Because the ID is unique, so it should only return one object. So instead of doing the whole for loop, I can just say I can just access my first result because I know it's always going to be the first one. Okay, and this should give me back my results response dot send, and I want to send my HTML back. Okay, again, it does return me results as an array, but I know if I am passing in an ID, it should always have just one object. So if I run this now, it should give me an HTML back. Okay, there you go. Okay, go back to 1, HTML, go back to 2, HTML. Let's go back here. Okay, so I created 2 routes. The first one was everything, but in HTML. The second one is with one ID, but still HTML. Okay, all right, questions before we move on to the activity? Oh, why do I have schooled ID? Okay, no questions? Everybody understand? So we have connected our database and we are getting the result from our database, and then this is how we show it on our web page. Okay, no questions. So let's do activity. This is number 3. Okay, this is called Seinfeld app. You are going to create kind of similar routes, and then your routes are going to display HTML pages instead of an API. But you're going to create a database. You're going to create and then pull that information from your database. So let's look at the README. Okay, I know it only says 4 things, but now we understand. So these are the 4 routes that you're going to create, and these routes are going to return HTML. Okay, no JSON, no APIs. Okay, but how do we, this is going to be pulled from your database. All right, so reading these instructions, come up with a table. It's going to be a single table. All right, so create a database, create a table, and then in your table, let's see, what do we need? You need an ID, of course, so that's one column. Second column looks like display all the actors, that's fine. A route that will display all the actors and the data ordered by coolness points. So there's one more column, looks like an integer. So you're going to have a column called coolness points, which is going to be an integer. And then the last is going to be a route that will display specific type of an attitude. So this could be a string, I guess. And then this will have their attitude in it. So basically, ID, coolness chart, or coolness points, and then attitude, 3 columns. Um, yeah. Oh, and then the name of the actor, you're missing that. So name of the actor, coolness points, and their attitude, and then an ID. So 4 columns. So create a database, create a table first. Um, Create, insert few rows in it, just decided, and the school one, and then come back to your Express, and then you're going to create similar apps. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put my code up over here so that once you guys have your database ready, you can refer to this super nice string creation. So since this is it's a little bit challenging and also very important activity, we'll take it all the way to the lunch, and I'll introduce the next part after lunch. Again, the reason is I want to make sure everyone in the class is able to do this. All right, this is important that we need to have a database. We can connect to database. We understand how to do all that stuff. Okay, so we'll have like 35 minutes. I'm hoping you guys can at least create. Well, there are three routes you have to do. At least the first and the second one. All right, so we'll take this activity all the way to the lunch. All right. You can choose what? No, it has no. Just yeah. Yeah, you can choose anything.
Yeah.
All right, if you still don't have the SQL schema done, like I create tables and all, I will slack out the um, schema file that I have. Um, if hopefully you guys were able to create the database and the table. If not, I'm going to send the schema file that I have. Um, this is how I would create. I mean, it's applicable for any TV app if you're not using Seinfeld, using a different one. Just change the insert, but the table should cater to all of that. Okay, but if you were able to create the table and the rows and the columns, please continue with the same table. I send this out for somebody if they're not able to struggling with that, because again, today's class is more focused on getting our SQL data in our Express app. Backticks? The border. And database? Okay, that should work. Um, let's see it. Double, single quote, and triple quote. So maybe there was some. Okay. Right. Well, it's you don't have a get route, right? That's what's not. Oh yeah, this thing is double quotes. Backticks are for string. Oh. Header dot stack. So we have a stack. So it's like a stack trace. Like it will list all the files that this header reference this file. Why? Because there's a function that is called by this file. There's a function that is called by this. For example, if there's any header in connection document, right? This is the function that you are using, and this is the score. Right? So we will dive deeper and we'll say, oh, we can use this function. The code behind you see where the error is, but I'm looking back at my something else. Go through the package, not the package, whatever the code is. Right? After it gets to the starting point. So it's like tracing all the way where the error is. Because error was thrown somewhere in the code that is not yours, so stack trace tells you exactly where the error is. Yeah, if it is just over here, well, it's not covered code because error is always going to be from that function, right? Because you haven't written any code with it, so the error will always be from some code.
Yeah, so.
No, no, you will be deciding your own somebody else's. What I mean by software is yeah, of course. So there's a new error to do.
Actually, yeah,
Right? What is this?
super yeah, it was one of those when in Rome tried or no, they're not in something. No, it's called Bondegi. It's silver marble. But yeah, they look like basically looks like little bugs, just a bit bigger.
That even the better.
Yeah, like they just give it to you like in a cup.
But
Yeah, it smells
taste
great.
is too good.
But they're like, it's like a old school,
Right now.
but it's still kind of people will go out there and they're not like, go like on a hike or something.
But you're not gonna
There
send
now. That's- Are you looking it up?
What you're gonna say is,
I did a
what
square.
happened?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
What is going on?
That's how it is.
Yeah, I was never. It tastes really, really earthy.
That's what insects taste
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just like a little.
so that you get, you're only impressed on the first error that comes up, at the top of the stack. The stack will be like error that you're not concerned about. Having it in some molecule that I is a word. But I think that's
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, it's like really. Octopus tendons. Just chop them up. They brought it out on the tray. Still like holding around. That was good. Yeah.
Oh, through,
Like spit.
going to show the output and the
Fishy.
throw, and it's going to not actually damage and stop it. Another one
Oh, yeah. What do they put on the
Okay.
Exactly.
Throw it again. It's going to show that error, show it, and then all the turns, and like stop it. What
I've always wanted to try to paint.
throw is it is playing the error and it is strict. Like it is saying, oh, something really bad happened. Stop it. Return can use number. Over here, it's an error. I get that, but return if I want to return.
Yeah.
Throw it is for yourself. Okay, this is like that. But return can be used for but though you are when you are there, say, okay, this is better, I don't want to do it.
So they're basically the same except which are used for the rest function.
It's like a string stand and it's got one has to be
better
next.
right here.
Yes, of course I am.
Too popular. Yeah. That's only how popular. Different varieties.
It's a hen and cheese cool.
That's amazing. Wow.
Like broccoli chicken cheese.
Yes. Although I feel like
Well, I mean, maybe it's lean pumpkins. Less bad.
but he still has to cook that.
Oh yeah, you get the buffalo chicken. Meat sticks.
I did it.
She's cooking
The Totino's pizza rolls.
Yeah.
Oh, this person emptied that. So what do you our ice thing doesn't work, so it's like you might as well put something in. So what do you want to do this task? It's gonna return your entire list of so you want the names, right? But you're not limiting basically task is everything. Like you want all the characters to be able to be this way. But you would do that down here. Like you would say like because remember so the where is gonna limit what you're getting in your database. So you would like a where would be like where ID is this or where attitude is this. No. So for this one you want to get everything now. Right? So you don't need that second parameter and so you're just gonna call that function now. So now it's going to say like response so I want to do something with this but this is where you do like a for loop. So loop over everything that you do. Oh yeah. Each character is
Oh, what's your?
but I mean
I never did.
so and you can see
So this is your.
yeah, and so it's kind of what he's showing you. So that's what his first one is, and I'm gonna put that there. It's just that he's getting everything back. Oh yeah. It depends on which country. So this one is just the opposite. That's just like a single connection. So now, so initially what he's doing is yeah, and so that's what he's doing there is like he starts by doing like it starts on this. Yeah. I mean you can do it over. It's bringing back So you're making your query here saying go to, you've already said which database you joined. Give me everything from orders. So it's going to grab everything in your database, that's your results, it's an array.
There's no. So there's a that's one. They have packages, but this one, why this is
So you would say HTML add
but you will still have to install those two packages before you show up. If you want, you can do it very
So when I
that's why this one you can just no. This is going to open you up. At this point, this ID, anything, this request or class, this is coming from the request. There is a request coming from, it's coming from the browser. So on our browser, I'm saying first my database is
yeah, but you can still return all those things. It just depends on what you do. So right now you would just have a single
oh, and I just did points.
but you can return all that stuff.
yeah, remember the database is your
Well, so the difference with the other stuff is so the kind of difference is how you're ordering. So both your first two pass anything that are all the other characters. It's just that the first one is going to just do it in order of their IDs. So you don't need to put any of the add on it. It'll just bring back however it's ordered in the database. That's how it's displayed. This one you want to set it so that it will return them in order of their points from highest to lowest. So that's the difference. And then this one is where you're actually people can pass in. Okay, I want all my characters that have an attitude of cool, spicy, shrill, you know? It's appropriate.
So wait, so what if I
Yeah. So now you would add. Remember, you're inside right now, and your for loop is going to go through grabbing things to populate it. So right now you just
Yes.
have one item in your list.
on the ID.
But now, what if you want to put another one? So you do another LI, another LI tag, whatever you want. Yeah. So you can set it up if you want to return every value, then you would just do an LI tag for each thing. So you have results on name, results on attitude, results on bonus points. Or if you just want name, you can just leave his name. Or if you just be below. So remember how the list. So you're doing an unordered list. So it's just below. Absolutely. Because remember, yeah, anything, so this would character name is. So right now it's just on display. So that's where you.
All right, we have 4 minutes. We'll take a lunch break and we'll start back at 12:45. Okay.
It's really.
I'll post the solution at the end of the class. Again, it's very similar. Even if you did follow along in this part, that's also fine. If you are doing the activity, that's also fine. The important part is you have a database and you know how to exactly pull. Okay. After lunch, we are going to look at how do we do this in a different way instead of doing this in a string. All right. So I'll start back at 12:45.